My name is Searle Kochberg, and I was born in Canada, in Winnipeg, and of an English parent and a Canadian parent. And I lived there till I was 11, then I moved to the UK, and I've been back and forth. My Jewish life was set up at a very young age. I went to Hebrew school. I went to a Zionist school in Canada all through my elementary education. And then when I arrived here, my parents, who are not probably the world's experts on Judaic theology, sent me to a Hasmonean prep school, which is extremely orthodox. My grandfather was adamant that his grandchildren have a very traditional Jewish education. So, in fact, when I was young, my mother, who grew up in a very bohemian kind of, she grew up in Soho in London, Russian-German parents. She embraced all of it. She, kept a kosher home and all that sort of thing. But these things tended to dilute. When I was in my early teens, we were more relaxed. My grandfather in Canada had very traditional Seder nights, as you would have them here too. The whole service, the 4-hour thing. He was leaning on a chaise longue. My grandmother fed him that night. He didn't feed himself. It was a wonderful spectacle, and I've actually made a film about my early childhood and the Passover table called Leaving the Table, which is all about how one leaves one's identities and takes on new identities as one gets older. And I brought in my niece and nephews into the film because obviously their relationship to Judaism is quite different to the preceding generation. And my brothers and I all, at a time, were living with non-Jewish partners, so that made a huge difference to the dynamic of our family Jewish life. So, yeah.
Are you happy to elaborate on exactly how religion played a part in shaping your identity, who you are today?
I would say that in my late teens through early 30s, it played no part, Judaism. Like a lot of gay men and a lot of LGBT people, and particularly of my generation, it was you were more or less excluded from, or you excluded yourself. You felt there were a lot of values that were not compatible with the way you thought about yourself, and there was a bit of self-hatred, I suppose. You didn't see yourself in that traditional Jewish world, really. But apart from that period of my life, Judaism has played an important role. I think less religiously than in terms of ritual. I love the ritual. And in terms of cultural studies, I am a film theorist, historian by profession, and filmmaker as well. And I am very interested in the roots of my ideas and whatever. And I identify as what is called a diasporic Jew, where my identity is not through Israel. I don't have a very strong affiliation with Israel, but through my experience really as a North American Jew. So for me, New York is the big Mecca, and my worldview was very much shaped by the writers, directors, performers, Jewish performers in America, and that's still a big part of my life's work, really. Those people continually renew me and inspire me.
Do you remember the particular period of time or situation where you started to have that notion of identity as a gay Jewish man?
I came out in London and I joined a group called Icebreakers in Islington, which was a non-Jewish group. It was for people coming out in the this was the late 80s, and I just didn't know where to start, and I didn't actually have knowingly any gay friends. And when I finished with Icebreakers, which was wonderful, a group of about 50 of us used to meet up every week in some building in Islington, I can't even remember. And then we'd go to a pub, and we would go with counselors, and we were all terrified, because my God, what's going to happen to us? And these people just made us realize that being gay was like being straight. It's just get on with it, relax, live your life. So I went through that, and then I thought, okay, so I'm normal. I haven't got 3 heads. And the next phase was, I don't know anybody. What am I going to do? There was a lesbian and gay helpline for Jews that was set up in King's Cross in the days when it wasn't as posh as it is right now. And I joined that. It's laughable, really, because I signed up to be one of those people on the phone, and I didn't even know my own relationship to gayness at this point, but it was a way of meeting Jewish gay and lesbian people. And it was very, very therapeutic for me. I did all the counseling thing, and I hung around, I think, for about a year. And a few of the people I know from my Jewish shul community, which is called BKY, Beit Kalal Yisrael, I met there. They say that the helpline lasted about 10 years. It was at that time, it was the height of the AIDS epidemic and hysteria. It was a very strange time to be coming out. And a lot of us, we clung to one another. It was very helpful to me. But actually, when I went through that, I realized, okay, tick that box. I'm cool about being gay and Jewish. Now I have to get on with the rest of my life. And I'd already had a few relationships with men by that point. I met 2 guys through the helpline, not on the phone, I might add, but indirectly through the helpline. We're talking 87, probably 86 to 87, I would guess, that period. I remember the first one I had a half-serious relationship with, who was a gay Jewish guy from Chicago, who I met through JGLG, definitely. And he was over here for World Congress or something like that. It must have been in London in those days. It wasn't a wholly successful experience, but what was very important about it is that I realized I'm definitely gay. Because actually, I still wasn't 100% convinced, and when I had the relationship with him, I felt so completely whole as a human being for the first time in my life, that all the dots kind of added up emotionally for me and sexually, that I just felt normal, because I think up till that point I thought, really strange person. I felt like I was living in some masquerade, which I was actually, but it wasn't one that, I wasn't in the closet so much as there was a part of that, but I just was confused. Okay, and I think that experience, the best thing about that experience was that I came out of it clearly gay and Jewish, because he was Jewish too. And we're similar backgrounds, very secular, liberal, strict, socialist, it's similar background to me. So, and then I met someone right after him who I really was crazy about, I would say. And then for various reasons, he got a job abroad. We didn't actually split up, but he got a job abroad. And we recently actually met up with each other again, which was quite fun. But I hadn't seen him for like 25 years. So yeah, and then I didn't actually have a Jewish boyfriend again. I sort of...
What is the difference for you yourself, between having a Jewish boyfriend and a non-Jewish boyfriend?
In those days, I wouldn't have thought about it in those terms. In those days, I would have done it purely because I didn't know myself as a gay man enough. So going out with a Jewish person felt, at least that I understood. I understood that bit. So I could try and grapple with my gay side and what I liked about or disliked about my identity, whatever. But in recent years, I've sort of got to a point where I thought it might be a very satisfying experience for me, because as I've got older, and I know you're also one who doesn't like labels particularly, those little boxes. LGBT for me is I don't consider it a community. I consider it to be a group of individuals who share particular experiences. Maybe that is community. But there's something, when I think of community, I look for ritual where one can enact certain things with people. And for me, it wasn't enough, okay? I thought, yeah, so I'm gay, big deal. It's my sexuality, and it less and less did it define my being. And I think that I came from a generation where gay politics was huge in the light of gay liberation, in the light of the women's movement, and in the light of the AIDS epidemic. There seemed to be a need for label, okay? And we used that as a tool, a political tool. But as I got older, I just thought, well, actually, okay, I'm not a piece of politics. I'm a human being. And the Jewish thing seemed to me a possibility for emotionally connecting with someone on a level that I hadn't entirely experienced in a satisfactory way before. I mean, I lived with a man for 18 years who was Catholic, and we had at times a wonderful relationship, and I had another fabulous relationship with a Protestant German guy. One doesn't have to be Jewish, of course, to have a meaningful persona and be compatible with me. But I just thought as I was getting older, for me personally, the one thing that was a constant in how I saw myself as a human being was my Jewishness. Even when I lived a totally secular life, if anyone had asked me what I was, I remember even going for a job interview at the university where I work and telling the interview panel that I was gay and Jewish. I belonged to two minority groups. And they looked at me like, so why are you telling us that? But I always felt it very important to announce my Jewishness. It was like really important to me. And equally as my gayness. And of course, it's in a university environment that is really cool. It's interesting how my Jewishness has not always been received so well, in such a welcome manner, because it's not that people are anti-Semitic, but actually I think people in the secular world mistrust anyone where that person imposes a religious label on themselves. They question, what are you a rabbi? I mean, a lot of my gay male friends who are totally secular, when I started going back to shul, they thought they were going to see me with ringlets and a fur hat. They didn't really understand that I needed a kind of spiritual journey a bit, and I needed ritual, and I needed things that were more essential. I mean, my gayness is pretty essential to me, of course, but the ritual is essential, and it's about continuity. And so in many ways, as I've got older, I feel my Jewishness is more essential to me than my gayness. Of course, you can't say anything's more essential than your sexual being, but actually I've sort of put that to bed a long time ago. I don't think about it much, whereas my Jewishness I do think about. Private life, I belong to BKY, which is a community which isn't exclusively LGBT, but it has that kind of a focus and a kind of socialist agenda, social justice agenda. I work for Keshet UK as BKY's rep, and basically Keshet is an umbrella organization that deals with advocacy issues like gay marriage and whatever, and also educational programs in schools and synagogues about LGBT matters. I have some involvement in this project, and my students, are filming us as we speak, which is fantastic. And I'm a member of JGLG. So, but I keep it in perspective, because again, I'm one of these people, I get kind of nervous where every living, breathing moment is about any, I like I'm gay, I don't want to be exclusively in a gay world, I like my straight friends too. It's the same thing about being Jewish. It's a very personal thing. I have very close friends who are Jewish, LGBT, or straight indeed. But I also have a need to be with the wider community of people. Well, it was quite a funny moment. I used to come to this place, which is West Central London, and Janet Burden, who's the rabbi here, said to me, Searle, it's great having you here. I love you coming. You come here whenever you want. But she said, there's a congregation for you that's got your name written on it, and they meet in Notting Hill. And the minute I went into BKY, I thought, hey, this is interesting. So that was a bit of a revelatory moment, I'd say. I think it's about recognition, isn't it? It's about, I recognize, they recognize, it's sort of mutual connection. So yeah, that was a big moment for me, walking in the door. If I got married, I would like to say on camera that if I got married, the only reason I would ever get married, actually at this stage of the game, is to have a Jewish marriage. That's the only thing, because I can't actually see any other point in it. It would be to have the chuppah and the whole thing, yeah. Because again, it's my interest in ritual, but otherwise, no, not for me personally. But that would be cool. I felt that my story is probably quite a typical one, but it's over a lifetime of experience, and that I think because I'm of a generation that went through the AIDS epidemic, that the value of these stories is something that I really understand, that was a moment of awakening. That's when I came out, and that's my birth as a sort of gay man, and I think that it's very necessary to record that position, but also to record the connection between spirituality and gayness. Often in the wider community, LGBT people are only ever discussed in terms of sex. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we have souls, we have lives, and to see us in the round and to understand that we too go through exactly the same as everybody else.